Well, this is it, isn't it? Jim Morrison just gently echoing off in the distance as we approach the end of the weekly graded shows. But let's not entertain Mr. Lizard King just yet, because I still have a job to do, and that is to welcome you all to SmackDown Graded. So, hello, I'm Sam from Cultaholic Wrestling, and this is Graded for Friday Night SmackDown, where I take a look at the show segment by segment and award each little bit of grade from A+ to F. Now, this week is the WrestleMania 37 Fallout week, which means that the show is going to be long and windy and full of recaps and full of new things, but maybe no new things, but maybe some new things. So without any further ado, let's crack on with it. And one final time, everybody join in at home, hates the intro! Yeah, I figured I'd bring the tie back as well, because, screw it, why not? But we kick things off this week with Pat McAfee making his big SmackDown debut on commentary until he's cut off by the entrance of Roman Reigns. So Roman's hyping his big WrestleMania 37 win, and he says that it must be very embarrassing for both Bryan and Edge to have gone through that experience and come out on the losing end. And he says that, now nobody wants to face him in the locker room. There's nobody on his level. He puts down the mic, he's about to leave, and then Cesaro's music hits. Down comes Tony. So yeah, Cesaro gets to the ring, he looks at Roman, he looks at the Universal title, he goes for a microphone, but Roman kind of brushes him off and just walks away. Cesaro then awkwardly hangs for a moment before throwing the microphone down in annoyance, and this gets an A. Roman was perfect here. His closing line of telling Heyman to tell the company to cut the check and fire up the jet was gold. And then his refusal to even give Cesaro time, yeah, that's going to come back around and bite him on the body for sure. But oh my god, are they going to put... he's in the main event picture! He's in the main event picture! We then cut to Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville backstage, who are having a little bit of a conversation, and then up pops Cesaro, and he's like, did you see? Did you see what Roman just did to me? He says, I don't care if it's for the title or not, I want Roman in that ring tonight. And then Pearce comes in and he's a bit like, well, it's we can't really just be doing, he is the champion and it was standard boilerplate and it's information. And Sonya just cuts him off and goes, let me talk to him, I'll see what I can do. And Pearce just kind of looks at her again like, you are gonna take my job from me. But now it's time for our first matchup of the evening, which pits Otis against Rey Mysterio. Of course, we've got Gable and Dominic on the outside, and oh my god, I love Otis with all my heart, but all I could think about as he was making his entrance was Tucky. I'm just sad. But we've got a grade, and grade we shall. So let's take a look at the match, and it starts with Otis just using his natural size and power to dominate Rey. There's not really a lot more to the match from that standpoint. It's a tale as old as time. You got a fast little guy against a big strong guy. Rey nails a senton, but Otis just keeps powering up and stopping him dead. And then Otis goes for the splash, but Rey rolls out the way. This allows Rey to almost get a 619, then get a 619 properly. And then he manages to crucifix pin Otis and throw Otis's weight up over where his shoulders would be if he was lying on the top of his neck. This drives all of Otis's weight back on himself, and so Rey has just used Otis's weight to pin Otis. So yeah, Rey walks out of this one with the big win. Otis is a little bit like, oh god, what happened? What's going on? And Gable's just like, but I'm gonna give this one a C. It felt a bit stunted, to be honest. I mean, both teams have been going back and forth for a couple of months now. This just felt more like a palate cleanser, just a quick freshener of, yep, these two teams are feuding. It did hit all the notes, though, and it did set us back on course, but Otis is going to have to start being a little bit more careful around Rey, because Rey does have some technical ability that he's not going to be expecting. We then got a Heyman backstage, and he's asked if Roman is going to accept Cesaro's challenge, and then he sort of mockingly agrees, making it very clear that it won't be happening. He says Cesaro is a good opponent, but really, ultimately, he's a bit of a joke, and then he lists off a load of things that he doesn't like about him, like the fact he's got buck teeth and just standard stuff. But then he says he'll have his match, though. He'll have his match. It'll be against Jey Uso in the main event. Next up, we go to Sami Zayn, who's coming down to the ring, and he's got a microphone in hand, and he sort of recaps his WrestleMania 37 experience in terms of how he saw it. He said all the stars were aligned for him, but they all turned against him, and having a crowd there distracted him. Logan distracted him. When he hugged Logan, he knew Logan had been poisoned because Logan pulled back, and he knew that there were, the fans poisoned him, and the company poisoned him, and Owens poisoned him. He says he spent the whole match worrying about Logan, which is why he lost, but there's no distractions tonight, Kevin Owens, so get out here. So out comes Kevin Owens and we got ourselves a nice little WrestleMania rematch, and it starts with Sami immediately ducking to the outside and playing a bit of a game of cat and mouse with Owens until Owens just has enough of him, grabs him and flattens him. Owens has control until Sami evades a cannonball, and then Sami starts bringing his offense. He lays in some strikes, he chokes Owens out over the rope, he stomps him into the corner, but then Owens just powers up quickly and gets right back at it. That's kind of the theme of this one. He hits a nice sunset flip powerbomb, but then when we come back from the break, the roles have very much reversed. Sami then tries to escape up the ramp, but Owens drags him back. He hits him with that high knee to the back of the neck, and then Sami again tries to escape. Owens then goes for a stunner. Sami leaves the ring again, and then when Owens is trying to kind of jostle with him to pull him back in, he pokes Owens in the eyes. Owens goes back. Sami just crawls his way up the ramp, gets counted out, and that's that. Except it's not, because Kevin Owens is not a happy bunny. He climbs out the ring, goes, grabs him, brings him back, stunners him, and that is the end. I'm going to give this one a C+. It was entertaining for sure. It just felt like a little bit of a redo of their Mania match with a dash more of Sami being cowardly thrown in. The match was still solid and entertaining for sure. It just felt a little bit stop-start. We then go to Apollo backstage, who stood with Dabba Kato, and he's just bragging about his victory over Big E at WrestleMania. He's like, he's not here tonight. You know why he's not here? Because he got nailed with the Nigerian nail of Commander Aziz. So Dabba Kato is now Commander Aziz. That has been confirmed. And in terms of backstory for Aziz, he was apparently a former member of the elite Nigerian Royal Guard. We then go to the ring for the Street Profits, who are making their entrance as production are putting a nice blue carpet and balloons down, and they say that they're here tonight to take on the Dirty Dogs and take the tag gold, and you know, they kind of hype that up, but that's not the reason they're here right now. The reason they're here right now is Bianca's huge moment at WrestleMania 37. Bianca says that her mind is blown and she feels blessed. Despite the struggles, she never really stopped believing, and everybody has some EST within themselves. She then brings up Sasha, but not in a horrible way. She kind of thanks Sasha for being the person that went through that match with her. She said it took the pair of them to make history at WrestleMania. She cracks a joke about whipping her with her hair, and she says that she's just getting started. We then go to Sasha Banks backstage, who's about to be interviewed, but she can't really bring any words. She's just angry. She shows the scar, like the mark on the side of her from where the hair whipped her, and then she just angrily storms off. And then it's Bayley's turn. We go to her being interviewed backstage, and she mocks Sasha and she mocks Bianca as well. She says that Belair is not the champion that people need right now, and then she throws her hat into the ring. She challenges Bianca for the title, so Bayley is re-entering the title chase. Next up, it is the Street Profits taking on the Dirty Dogs for their WWE SmackDown Tag Team titles. This one starts with Ziggler and Dawkins just wrestling for control, with Ford getting in to really take charge. The Profits try to trap Ziggler, but then Roode gets in and makes the tag, but really it's the Profits who capitalize here. They're able to flatten both of them, and then they go and just play up to the cameras at ringside before we go to a break. When we come back, the Profits are still very much in control, but then Ziggler gets up on the apron, causes a distraction that almost allows Dawkins to be pinned after a spinebuster from Roode. The Dogs trap Dawkins, but then there's a double down when Dolph gets in. That's a lot of Ds. Ford and Roode get in, with Ford absolutely cleaning up, dropping both of the Dogs, hitting a huge dive to the outside, tagging Dawkins. Dawkins hits the spinebuster, tags back to Ford. Ford hits the splash. It looks like it's all but sealed, and then Dolph gets in and breaks the pin. Ultimately, what happens here is that Ford's taking it to Roode, and then while Ford's back's turned, Ziggler tags Roode, and then Ziggler's able to get in while Ford's still taking it to Roode, hit a zigzag from out of nowhere, and he picks up the win, retaining the titles. I like this one. I'm going to give it a B. While I would have loved to have seen the Street Profits leave with the titles here, I do think it makes sense, and I feel that a bigger stage would allow them to add a little bit more shine to that handover, and it would give it a bit more gravitas. We also have to take into account that, you know, we have usually quite an influx of viewers around Mania season. They need to all be on the same page when it comes to storylines and things like that, so there's always that to take into consideration. But also, I feel like we need to start giving Ziggler and Roode a little bit more respect as champions, because it feels like they've been an afterthought as champions for the longest time now. It's almost like they've been relegated to the bottom of the division while non-champions sit atop it. It's very strange. We then go to Cesaro, who's being interviewed backstage, and he's asked about what Heyman said about him, and he's like, you know what, he's right about some things. I might be a little bit dumb, I might have buck teeth, but ultimately, I do belong in the ring with Roman, and I will beat Jey Uso tonight to prove that. Next up, we've got Natalya versus Shayna Baszler, and this one has a nice little bit of chain wrestling to start things off. Natty goes for a sharpshooter, but Nia is able to just pull Shayna back across across to the ropes and help her escape it. Back in the ring, the pair go through again some nice chain wrestling, but Shayna's desperate to lock in an armbar, only for Tamina to help Natalya escape it. Natty then goes for the sharpshooter, and Nia gets up on the apron in order to cause a bit of a distraction. And then this is unfortunately a massive accident, because then Natty is able to just quickly roll back down, and she pins Shayna in all of the confusion for the 3. A little bit of a fight breaks out with Tamina dropping Nia, and Natty and Tamina standing tall after the match. I'm going to give this one a C-. It wasn't a terrible match. It was just super short, like super short. And I feel like if we are going to start, treating Natalya and Tamina seriously, we need to really start showing off what Natalya and Tamina are capable of in the ring. And Natalya is capable of some amazing chain wrestling. We've got a little glimmer of that here. But it just feels like we need to remind people of how much of a credible threat she is, because Natalya's not really been booked the best for 10 years, has she? We then got a Roman's locker room, and Jey's sat next to Roman, and he runs down Cesaro, down the camera, for disrespecting Roman. He just keeps going and going and going, and then he gets up and leaves, and Roman's like, all right, man, now he's gonna show you. But now it's time for our main event of the evening. It's the Battle of the Battle Royal winners, Jey Uso. Main event, Jey Uso versus the Swiss Cyborg, Mr. Big D Tony Cesaro. So Cesaro is just straight on Jey and manhandling him, but Jey drives him into the corner, traps his arm between sort of 2 turnbuckles, and just starts torquing it. He's just working over the arms, because a lot of Cesaro's moves are upper body stuff, so if he takes out the arms, there's not a whole lot he can do. When we come back from the break, Jey is in firm control. He goes again for the arm, but that doesn't stop Cesaro, just lifting him from, imagine somebody in a DDT position, you're just holding them. Cesaro just goes, whoop, into a vertical suplex position like it's nothing. So yeah, plants him with a huge vertical suplex, but then Jey is straight back on the arm, and Cesaro's just having to try and stay on top of it and keep his distance a little. Cesaro cuts Jey off on the top rope, but he's got to keep that pressure up. He goes for a corkscrew uppercut, connects with that, goes for a swing, but he gets blocked. Jey's just then getting in Cesaro's face, slapping him, backhanding him, talking down to him. Cesaro's on his knees, Jey's just stood over him, just being horrible, and Cesaro just sort of gently fights back, and then just starts throwing slaps and strikes of his own. Cesaro hits a huge clothesline, turns Jey inside out, and then sets him up for the swing. So he goes once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and then boom, Cesaro's attacked from behind by Seth Rollins, who just can't get the memory of being swung out of his head. He just hits him, leaves the ring immediately, and he's just mouthing off as he goes up the ramp. So yeah, we get a DQ finish. Jey peels out of the ring as fast as he can. Cesaro's sort of coming to, going, what the heck was that? And he looks up the ring and sees Seth, and Seth's just mouthing off into the camera as we go off the air with, it's not over till I say so. This one only gets a B, and it's such a crying shame, because I was really enjoying the back and forth these two were having, especially that comeback after Jey just slapping him in the face and disrespecting him, and he fights back, and it's like, yes, Cesaro, yes! And then the swing, and then Seth just leveled it. But it made sense from a storyline perspective, keeps the story going, doesn't it, for any new viewers, and it means at the next pay-per-view they can put a definitive end to it and move forward, and Tony can go and get, the big blue monstrosity. He needs it. We were right about turning Roman heel, and we're right about Cesaro. Just get behind him. Get behind him, you mothers. In terms of an overall grade for SmackDown this week, I think I'm going to have to give it a B-. I think some of the promo work and a couple of the matches were a bit stronger than the others and necessitated just that little bump from a C+. Post-Mania shows, as I said throughout, are always kind of difficult because it's so much recap and rehash and just sort of re-establishing things for any new viewers of the audience and just setting everything on a fresh course. It's not quite, a firm reset date at the start of the year for Mania. It always kind of peters out a little bit and then all the new stuff comes in, but you know what? It was an alright show. So I guess this is it. I guess that this is the end of SmackDown Graded as a weekly show. So there's a couple of last things we got to do first, and that's one of which is have a drink, if I can get this open, to celebrate. Wonderful. Well, that went all down me, but I would like to give you as an audience an A+ for being fantastic and just being so kind to me and actually sticking with it. You guys are absolutely awesome. And yeah, I couldn't imagine even doing this at one point, so thank you all. And I guess there's one last opportunity for a grade in the fact that my report card's probably due pretty soon, so you may as well all leave me a grade down below in the comments. Let me know how I've done across this entire adventure. And it's just worth noting here at the end that this is not actually the end for Graded and WTF. They are still going to be a thing for pay-per-view shows, so you are still going to have some Graded and WTF action. Don't worry worry about it. And of course, we're working on something big, new, shiny, and review shaped that will come along once we are all able to be back working together again. So for one last time, this has been Graded for Friday Night SmackDown. What did you guys think of the show? Let me know in the comments below. Cheers. I've been Sam from Cultaholic Wrestling. Thank you all so very much. And I'll see you again soon.